Tam
Natva Jnanam Pradam Gurum
Natva Jnanam Pradam Guru
Mumukshunam Hitarthaya
Mumukshunam Hitaya
Tattva Bodho Abhidiyate.
Tattva Abhidiyate.
Hari Om, everybody. Thank you for attending the class. Just a quick
Vikashji has joined new today.
No problem. Everybody is welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think Balaji Garu had sent the text link. You can download the text and.
I'm just doing that. Sorry.
Okay,
At the same time.
That's
Thank you.
perfectly fine. You should be able to get all the information from there. So we are the beginning of chapter number 10. Before we enter the chapter, just a quick summary of the text and what are the topics we have covered. So this book is to understand about the self, Tattva Bodha, knowledge about us is what this main objective of the book is. The book is divided into 5 sections. So the first section was what we looked at, the Sadhana Chatushtaya Sampatti, the fourfold qualities that is required by a student. And then we went into Jiva Vichara. Jiva Vichara is nothing but discussion and analysis of who we really are. And a lot of times we misunderstand ourselves to something that we are not. And I think the Tattva Bodha went through the 11 different elements that we normally assume ourselves to be. And then it said, you are none of those 11 elements, you are Satchid Ananda. And we went through each of the definitions in great detail. The third section of the book was what we call Srishti Vicharam, or the discussion about the creation. So we discussed about the individual soul, then we discussed the creation. When we discussed the creation, we also introduced the concept of Ishvara, or the creator. And then we went through that whole process in great detail, Maya and Brahman, and how from Maya and Brahman put together is the Ishvara, who is the creator of this world. And we took it from our Jiva Vichara, where we said Atma plus Maya, or the 3 Shariras, is equal to Jiva. And similarly, Brahman plus Maya is equal to Ishvara. And then we said, if you remove the Maya concept out of the 2 sides, Atma is equal to Brahman. So that's where we were. And then last class, we went through in a great detail the concept of Ishvara. Ishvara, most of us understand at a superficial level, where we think of us as the creator and we think of Ishvara as the creator. So Ishvara is the karma phaladata. So we think of Ishvara as the one all-powerful who actually makes all the wishes come true. And then we go to the temples or any other religious institution and pray to the creator to make sure that we have a good life and all our problems are solved. That is a very superficial view of Ishvara, which is a common man's view of Ishvara. Our culture is so advanced that it is very difficult to just throw the advanced concepts to somebody. You have to start, like even a child, before it can run, it has to learn how to walk, right? So the first step our culture does is we introduce the concept of Daivatam. That is, we introduce the concept of the fact that I and the creator are different. We are 2 different entities. And when we think of that, then the Ishvara is, as I said, all-powerful. He's created the world. He's the Jagat Guru, or he's the Jagat Karta. And he's also gives me the karma phala that I've done. He monitors what is happening, and he gives me, based on my punya and papa, he will give me the results of those activities. Now, this version of Ishvara is true for most of us because we recognize us to be the body, right? None of us really have advanced to the point where we got the conviction. Right now, I think some of us have read the text and read the Upanishads. The Shastras tell you that you are not the body. You are the Atma, that is the Adhishtanam or the Adharam of the 3 different avasthas that you go through. but we are not convinced. It makes sense intellectually, but I think if I wake you up tomorrow in the morning or when you're sleeping, you will say, I'm still the body. I don't think we have reached the point of conviction where we dissociate ourselves from the body, mind, intellect concept and then attach ourselves to the Atma concept. As long as we think that we are the body, mind, intellect, the concept of Ishvara is true. Because the minute we realize that we are the body, mind, intellect concept, the Jagat is true, and therefore the Ishvara is true. And I think I've told this multiple times in the class. When you wake up from the deep sleep, when you're in deep sleep, you don't really have a concept of I. You don't know who you are. You don't know what your body is. You don't know how where you are, what your position in life is. Absolutely nothing, right? You have actually merged with the Supreme, but you don't know that you're merged with the Supreme. You're still in avidya or ignorance. And one of the things that Ramana Maharshi tells us all the time is that when you wake up in the morning, you need to spend a little time doing a vichara on what was I doing 5 minutes before I woke up, right? 5 minutes before I woke up, I was not Hari, or Balaji Garu was not Balaji. I had Layam, or I had merged with the Atma. And then when I wake up, how do I start my waking up process? The waking up process starts with me getting out of the Sushupti Avastha or deep sleep. And then slowly I identify myself with the Sukshma Sharira. I kind of see myself breathing, or I take my attention away from Karana Sharira to Sukshma Sharira, and then to Stula Sharira. And then when my identification goes to the Stula Sharira, I am born, the Jiva is born. I become Hari, I am so and so, I'm so tall, I'm so heavy. But 5 minutes ago, when I was in deep sleep, I had absolutely none of those senses. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I was wearing. I didn't know whether I was wearing a makeup for ladies or even for men. I don't know whether my hair was combed. I didn't even know where I was sleeping, right? And this is the real issue with Vedanta. We are not teaching you something that you don't experience every day. This is something that you go through every single day of your life, but you don't really pay attention to it. You don't do any vichara on it. You immediately jump onto your Stula Sharira and you call yourself as the waker, and then you go about doing your life and moving forward in that arena. And what the Shastras tell us is that this body, mind, intellect concept is not you, because this body, mind, intellect concept stays for just in the Jagrata Avastha. When you go to dream sleep, when you go into the dream sleep, you don't really know what your body is. You're actually creating a world with your vasanas and with whatever you've picked up from your Jagrata Avastha. At that time, the body is not involved. Your 5 senses are not involved. You actually create, using the Sukshma Sharira, the various capabilities, the power of seeing, the power of hearing in the dream. None of your sense organs are involved in that activity. But as long as you're in the dream, that world is real. You actually, like I'm sure all of us, when we dream, we get angry with that person who is in the dream. We shout at that person. We kick that person. We do everything. We do everything that we do in the real world, but we're not using any of our senses. So the waker that was there when we were waking is no longer there when we are in the dream world. This is a very important concept that you have to understand. We don't really pay attention. The waker dies and the dreamer comes up. When the waker dies, along with it dies the entire thing that we have gained in the world. Our experiences in the world, our relationship in the world, our objects in the world, they have absolutely no use in the dream world. They are there only when you're awake. When you're in the dream world, you might have a concept of a wife or a husband that we have seen in your waking world, but that entity is not involved in your dream. This dream is created in your own mind through the vasanas that you have in your Karana Sharira. But everything that you own in the Jagrata Avastha is not there in the dream world. And the same thing happens when you go into deep sleep. When you go into deep sleep, you even lose the concept of mind. See, when you are in the waking world, you have body, mind, intellect identification. When you go into the dream world, your body is gone, mind and intellect are still working because they're part of the overall mind. And then when we go into the deep sleep, all the three entities are gone. You don't have body, mind, intellect concept whatsoever. And all the experiences that you had in the dream world dies. You die as a dreamer, and then you wake up as a deep sleeper. And one of the things that Vedanta says is we are after an entity that stands the test of time. It was there in the past, it is there in the present, and it will be there in the future. And just by this example, we can see the waker, dreamer, and deep sleeper, they're there only in certain points of time. So if we look at the Vedantic definition of what is real, that is Nityam, that stands the test of time, none of these avasthas or none of these jivas, like jiva taking any of these roles, is real from the Vedantic point because they die in the other state, right? And this is something that we need to spend a little time. In fact, I think I've told you this. King Janaka actually was essentially, this experience is what turned him into Vedanta. He was a king. He dreamt that he was a pauper. He was a beggar actually, and he was begging for food. And he didn't get any food. He didn't get any water, and he was absolutely agitated. And with that agitation, he woke up in his palace. And that started him thinking, who's the real I? Is it the waker, that I'm the king of this kingdom and I have all the wealth that anybody can possibly imagine? I have everything that I have. Or is it the beggar in the dream who was begging even for a drop of water and a small little thing for food? Who am I? Was his question. And this question was addressed to one of the sages that he had in his court called Yajnavalkya. And out of that came the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, which is one of the most powerful Upanishads that we have in the Hindu culture, where he said, you are neither the waker, nor the dreamer, nor the deep sleeper, but you are the adhishtanam, or you are the adharam that makes the experience happen, that powers the experiences that you go through. So that's how we have to move forward. So what we are now going to do, and I'll stop here. Oh yeah, I was talking about the Ishvara. So most of us know Ishvara. We discussed this very detailed last class. So I'm just giving you a quick summary before we get involved. Most of us look Ishvara as a superficial level. And what Vedanta says is that if you go one level deeper, that is, before you learn calculus, you need to know algebra, you need to know arithmetic, right? So you have this progression in mathematics. Similarly, you start with Daivatam and cultivate the belief in God, the Bhakti, the Karma Yoga, and get your mind trained. Then you're ready for Nyana Yoga, which is what they say, and we will look at this in great detail, is that at the body level, me and the creator are different. So as long as I identify myself with the body, the creator is all powerful, he is the creator. But we have looked at it and said the Jiva is a combination of the three shariras or Maya plus Atma. And Brahman and Ishvara is a concept, is made up of Maya and Brahman. We saw this in great detail, how from Maya the Tanmatras were formed, how from Tanmatras Sukshma Sharira was formed. Then we went through the knowledge of Panchikaranam, and then how the Stula Shariras and the Jagat was formed. So we went through that in great detail in the creation. So what the Upanishads say is that you are not the body, mind, intellect concept. Jiva is a combination of Sukshma Sharira, Atma, and we looked at the Chidabhasa. So if you remove the Anatma from that equation, you are actually the Atma. And if you go into the creation, if you remove the Maya from that equation, from Ishvara, all is left is Brahman, and Atma and Brahman are the same. They are not part of each other. They are the same. They are one and the same, which is a very fundamental concept in Advaita. There are other darshanas of Vedanta which say we are a part of the whole, and when we die, we go and become an appendage in that bigger thing. That is not what Advaita says. Advaita says there is absolutely no difference between you, the Atma, and the Brahman. That's why we say Advaitam. It is not dual. It is only one. It is conditioned by the body, mind, intellect, and it exhibits as a body. And then when it works through all the bodies in the world, it works as Ishvara. So in another example that our Swamiji gives all the time, for example, the relationship between Hanuman and Rama, right? Hanuman has said that in one of the shlokas, that when I think I'm the body, I'm your servant. When I look at the mind level, you are a part of me. When I identify myself with my Atma, you and I are the same. There is no difference between Hanuman and Rama, which is what the scriptures are saying. Now, this is a very big leap from the superficial definition of me and Ishvara to the more sophisticated explanation of what Ishvara is all about and how Atma and Brahman are related. And I think that's where we were in the last class. And let me stop there, because these are all very, very difficult concepts. It's not easy to understand. That's why I said this Tattva Bodha just throws these concepts at you and just kind of moves on. If you get into deeper books like an Upanishad or Bhagavad Gita, they will get into this in a lot more detail logically and refute your doubts and move forward. So let me stop there and see if people have any questions or anything that we don't understand. If after that, we'll start with chapter number 10.
Yeah, I just want to share an analogy which Gurudev gave in the Kathopanishad. Like, I think a small kid comes to his dad and asks, Dad, how is it like to get married? So, dad can explain a few things, like, this is that, but he has to get married to know what it is, right? So we are all in that situation of that kid trying to understand what is a marriage looks like, but once you get married, then only we try to understand, right?
You have to go through the experience to really
that.
appreciate and understand it. Any other questions? Anything that doesn't make sense, or is it?
No, I just have a small experience to share, but again, I don't know how to connect the analogy. So I want to throw this out because I keep remembering now that I'm taking this your class, sir. So this is what it is. So my second son always had some kind of issues when he was sleeping, right? I mean, he couldn't really sleep flat, whatever. So I, as a mother, I was attached, and then my goal was nothing but to just hold his hand during the night too, so that I know if he's moving or if he's struggling, I can wake up. But every single day, I can tell you, that hand, I was not holding the hand, right? At some point, I would just wake up freaking out what happened to him. But I know that now I went into the deep sleep. I didn't know I was a mother, right? But entire my waking state, I was like nothing but I didn't even think of my food or anything, right? I was 100% mother. So now I'm thinking, again, I don't know how to connect the witness. Who was witnessing? I don't know, but I was not holding his hand, and that's I don't know. I just thought about it. I had no relationship in my deep sleep with him, right? I didn't even know I was a mother. That's all I remember now.
No, that's exactly what I'm sorry to hear about your son. I hope he's okay now.
Long time ago, sir.
No, that's fine. I'm glad to hear that it went away. That's good. Well, a lot of children have these kinds of issues, like they're afraid of something, and then over time they outgrow it. And I'm glad you did. But I think you answered your own question. I don't really have to say anything, because in that brief period that we are in deep sleep, we don't really know who we are. So I think now that we've got our entire team here, so let me just, I had a couple of announcements to make, and I wanted to make sure everybody is aware of it. The first announcement is that I'm going to India. I haven't been to India in 2 years, and I'm leaving on the February 19th, and I'll be back on March 15th. So I'll be gone for about 3 weeks. And so we have probably 2 more classes, and then I might be gone for 3 weeks. The second issue that I have is that it's good and bad, actually. The good one is that I got promoted to a managing director just a week ago, and along with that, thank you. No, it is a big thing in our profession. Managing director is the ultimate thing that you can take. You become a partner of the firm. But what has happened there is that I've got something that I have to deal with on Mondays. Whereas I might be late coming in, there are some activities that I'm getting involved in, which I was not getting involved in before, but I'm getting involved in now. So I was wondering if we can move this class to the same time, either on Tuesday or Wednesday, because the rest of the week I'm still quite busy. But I'm sorry, I'm throwing this open to you, but I don't want to leave you hanging also, because you've been very loyal and you've been coming to me on the regular class. So I want to finish the book off, and we'll see what to do after that. But just, is that feasible for you people? Can Tuesday or Wednesday work for you? Same time?
Tuesday is good, sir.
For me, any day is okay, sir.
Yeah.
No, I want to go through every single thing. So maybe let's start with Vikas ji. He just joined us today, but would Tuesday work for you?
Will work. Yes.
How about Usha ji?
Yeah, Tuesday is good. Yeah.
Anil ji?
Works, but yoga is Tuesday, but I think it works.
Okay. How about Balaji Garu? He's a very busy person.
I can make it work, Hari. I think we'll have to work with Rama sir and adjust the time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you have the yoga
Tuesday,
class.
Wednesday.
Yes, we'll do that. We can move it to another day. We can work with Rama sir. He's totally understand. He will understand.
How about Lakshmi ji?
Tuesday is fine, Harji.
Tuesday is fine. Okay, so I'm coming back only on the 15th, which is a Tuesday, and I don't think, given the jet lag, I'll be ready on that Tuesday night to start the class. So we will start the class on March 22nd. I think that is the first Tuesday after I get back. So if that's feasible for all of you, if it works for all of you, we'll go with that date as the. We'll have classes on the 4th and the 11th. Actually, we'll have 3 classes. Sorry, we'll have, today's 31st. We'll have 2 more classes, the 7th and the 14th. I'm leaving on the 19th morning, and then I'll come back and we'll start on the 22nd.
Yeah, so what we can do, team, while Hariji is traveling, will be traveling, we can actually continue to meet and, revise the concepts.
Yeah, and I think write down questions. I think that's a good thing to go through each one of these concepts and make sure that whatever I'm saying is making sense or not. If not, come back and attack me when I come back on the 22nd.
I mean, we will probably contemplate, who knows, maybe we'll invent the 5th state or something,
You can do anything you want. You're all, imagination is the only thing that you have from that perspective.
Once again, congratulations, Hariji.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. No, thank you very much for appreciating and understanding what I'm doing. So
What about timings, sir? Same
time, we can do the same time, or if you want to do it, start at 7:30, whatever works for you. I don't care.
Yeah, 7:30 works perfect.
Is 7:30 better for all of us, or 8 o'clock better for all of us?
Anytime, Tuesday.
You are availability. Yeah, I know you need to commute. So
yeah, we'll
make it at 8 o'clock, because I think I go these days. We go 3 days a week to work, and coming from New York, 7:30 might be a little pushing it. Sometimes it doesn't.
Must be in a bank.
Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe 8 o'clock would be work.
8 is fine. Yeah, Tuesday, tentatively, Tuesday 8 o'clock.
Yeah, Tuesday 8 o'clock from March 22nd. The next 2 weeks, we'll do it as Monday as normal, and then we'll start from March 22nd. Thank you very much.
I'll be missing 22nd, sir. I'll be in India. I am going to India on 15th. I mean 13th.
Okay.
But I'll miss only one class. I'll be back by 27th. Yeah.
That's it. One class. Okay, that's impressive. You're coming back in 2 weeks. It takes me a week to get over the jet lag in India.
I know.
Before I am normal.
So,
but anyway, good. I'm glad you're going. I hope everything works out well.
Yeah. I hope.
Okay. With that announcement out of the way, let me see if anybody has any questions or comments on what we have discussed so far. If not, we will start reading chapter number 10. It should be, given our long discussion about Jiva, Ishvara, the Veda and all that, the 10 and 11 are very similar. One is basically telling what the difference is, and the other one is telling what the IQM is. So I covered both those things in my description, so we can quickly read through this thing. It'll probably make a lot of sense for all of you. So if there are no description, no questions, maybe Ushaji, you can just read all the 4 verses at one stretch, 10.1 to 10.4.
Okay. Jiva Ishvara Bheda Buddhi 10.1. Who is the individual soul? Stula Sharira Abhimani.
Stula Sharira Abhimani.
Jiva Namakam.
Jiva Namakam.
Brahma Pratibhimbam Bhavati.
Brahma Pratibhimbam Bhavati.
Saha Eva Jivaha.
Saha Eva Jivaha.
Prakritya. Swasmat Ishwaram. Swasmat. I'm sorry.
Swasmat Ishwaram
Bhinnatvena Janati.
Bhinnatvena
Swasmat Ishwaram
Bhinnatvena Janati.
10.2. Conditions of Jiva and Brahman.
Conditionings of Jiva and Brahman.
Conditionings of Jiva and Brahman. Avidyopadhihi.
Avidyopadhihi.
Sanatma Jiva ityuchyate.
Atma Jiva
ityuchyate.
Mayopadhihi.
Mayopadhihi.
Tan Ishwari ichuchyate.
Tan Ishwari ichuchyate.
10.3. Basis of the false view of the world. Evam Upadhi Vedat.
Evam Upadhi Vedat.
Jiveshwara Veda Drishtihi.
Jiveshwara Veda Drishtihi.
Yavat Prayantam Tishtati.
Yavat Prayantam Tishtati.
Tavat Prayatnam.
Tavat Prayatnam.
Janma Maranadi Rupa Samsarona Nivartate.
Janma Maranadi Rupa
Nivartate.
10.4. Correcting the false view. Tasmat Karanata.
Tasmat Karanat.
Jiveshwarayo Veda Buddhihi.
Jiveshwarayo Veda Buddhihi.
Svikarya.
Na Svikarya.
Svikarya.
Okay. I think the na is missing in the shloka. There should be a na there. Otherwise, it doesn't mean problem. Okay. Maybe we'll pick on somebody. Maybe Anilji, you can just read the English translation of each of those verses and then read the description below that.
Identifying himself with the gross body and known as the Jiva is the reflection of Brahman. This Jiva, by its very nature, considers itself to be different from Ishvara, the creator.
Yeah, let me stop there. I think this is a very important concept. Remember, we talked about how the Sukshma Buddhi has the power, or the mind specifically, has the power to reflect the Brahman. The Atma is there everywhere, but it's only in the Sukshma Sharira, the Atma is reflected, and there is something called Chidabhasa that is created. That is a reflected component of the Chida or Brahman, as it says here. Just like when you actually see ourselves in the mirror, we don't see ourselves. We don't see the real us. We see a reflected object of the mirror. So it is like a mukhabhasa. So the face, we don't see the real face. We see a reflected component of the face. And when the ladies do makeup for that particular thing, they're looking at the the reflected version of the face, and they're doing it themselves, right? That reflected consciousness, along with the Sukshma Sharira, we identify ourselves to be the Jiva. So the Jiva is, Atma is always there everywhere. The Jiva is the Chidabhasa, the Sukshma Sharira and Sthula Sharira. Sukshma Sharira is what creates the Sthula Sharira. So the Chidabhasa plus Sukshma Sharira plus Atma is your Jiva. That's what this thing says. Chidabhasa is the reflection of the Brahman. So when a person dies, the Sukshma Sharira leaves the body. And along with the Sukshma Sharira, the Chidabhasa also leaves the body. So the Sthula Sharira is still there. But in our language, we say Pranam poidu, or the prana has left the body, right? So Sukshma Sharira leaves, the Sthula Sharira is still there. And so the Jiva is the combination of those three entities. And that's what the first shloka says. We have discussed that just like the filament and the bulb and the electricity that we talked about, the mind is nothing but like a filament that reflects on the Brahman that is there everywhere. Brahman is not just present in us, even though that's how we see ourselves. Brahman is there everywhere. It just gets reflected. Just like, for example, the wire, the electricity is there in all the wire that comes through, but we recognize the electricity only through the bulb, because when the filament comes in contact with the electricity, it creates light. Or when we press the button and the motor runs and the fan turns on, then we realize that the electricity is on, right? And so that's the key definition there of verse number 1. Anilji, go ahead.
Conditionings of...
Yeah, go ahead.
You said Chidabhasam is like, you gave the example, right? When you look at the mirror, the reflection we are seeing is Chidabhasam. But when person dies, you're saying Chidabhasam we will leave.
No, the Sukshma Sharira will leave. So just like in the bulb might look like that, but the filament is broken, it's not going to light up, right? So when the Sukshma Sharira leaves, the reflecting component, which is the mind, also leaves. Because the mind is where the Brahman is reflected to create the Chidabhasa. So when the Sukshma Sharira leaves, the Chidabhasa will not be there.
Then how can we see, how can we saying that what we look at the mirror is our Chidabhasam?
I'm not saying it's a Chidabhasam, I'm just saying it's Mukhabhasam. It's just like
Mukhabhasam, okay.
It's just like another reflection of your face. That's all I said. I never said the mirror is your Chidabhasam. No.
Okay, that's where
Chidabhasam is the reflection of the Atma.
Yeah.
Mirror is the reflection of your face. So just the concept. But that the mirror has nothing to do with Chidabhasam.
Okay.
Another way to look at it is the bucket of water and the sunlight falling, right? The sunlight is the Atma. The actual sun is the Atma, and the reflected sunlight that you see in the room, or Surya Bhasa, is your consciousness, or is the reflection. It is
Srini posted a picture on the group.
Yeah. Srini always has a lot of pictures, so I'm glad he brings it. It's useful.
Yeah, that was from the Advaita Maklam, the notes. I was just taking notes, so I wanted to share.
Okay, good. Appreciate that.
Conditionings of Jiva and Brahman. Conditioned by ignorance, the self is called the Jiva. Conditioned by Maya, the same self, Brahman, is called Ishvara.
Yeah, this is again a very important concept. The concept of Upadhi is a very important example. Upadhi is an entity that gives a false, it kind of superimposes its property on another entity that's very close to it, even though the other entity does not have this property. So let me give you this example. If you have a statue made of crystal, right? And behind the crystal, if you have a red flower, when you see the crystal from far, the crystal will look red because of the color of the flower will be reflected in the crystal, and the crystal will look red. Now, here we call the Upadhi is the flower, which is actually giving a false red color to the crystal, even though the crystal is not red. And the crystal is called Upahita. That is, it got affected by the quality of the crystal is affected by the red flower. Now, one of the key component of why we call it Upadhi, that the quality is not real. If the quality is real, then we will tell that this is the quality of that entity. This quality is false. It's apparently there. It's mithya. But we mistake it to be the quality of the entity. And I'll give you another example which will make this thing very clear. We have said that the Atma is Anantam. It is present everywhere. But we see the Atma as a condition by our body. The body gives its contours, its boundaries. It superimposes that property on the Atma. So we immediately identify the Atma to be something that is conditioned by each of the bodies that we see, whether it's a living being or an animal or us. But the real thing is the Atma is akhandam, it is not broken. It is a layer that is even subtler than space that's present all over. So the body gives its false quality of conditioning to the Atma. Similarly, Atma gives its quality of the sentiency or chaitanyam, or the fact that we look alive to this body. This body is jadam. The body does not have the quality of the sentiency. The body gets its quality from the Atma. As long as the Atma is there, the body looks to be real. Actually, as long as the Chidabhasa is there, we just spoke. So we call this a mutual superimposition that's taking place. That is, the body is giving its false properties to the Atma. The Atma is giving its properties falsely to the body. And that is why this word Upadhi is used. This Upadhi, Upahita discussion is another big discussion in higher texts of Vedanta. But I just wanted to give you, Upadhi is an entity that gives a property to another person, another entity that is very close by, but that property does not exist there at all. It is just a false superimposition of the property. I hope that's very clear.
Upadhi to each other, like Atma is Upadhi to body and body is Upadhi.
Yeah, because Atma is giving the chaitanyam to the body, which is body is jadam. And then body is giving the whole concept of conditioning to the Atma, because Atma is not conditioned actually. Atma is there everywhere. But because we think that Atma is only in the body, it gives that quality.
So one question that I had with the sentences here is like, so they use the word ignorance in the first one for explaining Jiva, but they use the technical word Maya to describe Ishvara. So is Maya different than ignorance?
No, Maya is at the micro level, we call it avidya. Right? We also, when we did the thing, avidya is nothing but ignorance.
Right. Okay.
Right? So at the micro level, we call it avidya. At the macro level, we call it Maya.
Maya.
Okay, yeah. Sorry. Yeah, thank you.
Anil, you can move forward.
Yeah. Basis of the false view of world. In this way, due to different conditioning, seeing Jiva and Ishvara as being different, as long as that continues, so long this worldly existence of the form of repeated birth and death can never be removed.
This is what I think I've talked to you multiple times, that as long as we think we are the body, mind, intellect, we will go through this world of samsara, the birth and death, and the creator is real. So we need to break our identification with the body, mind, intellect concept and take the identification to the Atma that we really are, right? And that's what this thing is saying. The fundamental thing of proceeding on this knowledge is to break that body-mind hold, the stranglehold that body-mind has on us. And that's why we say some of the things that the Vedas tell you, Vedantas tell you to do, or some of the sadhanas that we tell you to do is Bhakti Yoga. The Bhakti Yoga, the first thing you do is you give up your ego, right? You completely surrender to God. Or Karma Yoga. When you do karma, not for your benefit, but for the benefit of others or the benefit of the community, slowly but surely, you are giving up the stranglehold of the body, mind, intellect, and you're creating that division. And that takes a lot of time. It's very easy to say that I'm not the body and I'm the Atma, but to convince yourself of that takes multiple lives and deaths, multiple births, multiple samsaras to get there. And that is the most difficult aspect. And that's another reason, another way of doing that is what we talked about, meditation, right? We need to meditate upon this entity, and in the meditation seat, over time, you gain this experience moving forward. So the breaking the body, mind, intellect concept is the most important part. And then remove the identification from there and putting the identification of the Atma will get us very, very close to the final aspect. Move forward, Anilji.
Correcting the false view. For that reason, the mentality of seeing difference between Jiva and Ishvara should never be accepted. Should I go ahead with the next?
Yeah, go ahead. And if people have questions, because I'm repeating a lot of things that I've already talked about.
In this chapter, Sri Shankaracharya brings in two of the most commonly used similes in Vedanta. They are Pratibhima Vada and Avacheda Vada. The purpose of these models is to explain the I-ness that exists at microcosmic level, as well as at the macrocosmic level. In doing so, the models show that the apparent difference between the microcosmic Jiva and macrocosmic Ishvara is due solely to the superimposition of the Upadhis upon them. The deduction here is that without these Upadhis, the Jiva is identical with Ishvara. This is exactly what is stated in all the Mahavakyas of Vedas. Let us now describe each of these two models. The Pratibhima Veda model, Bimba means light rays as directly emitted from their source. Pratibhima means the reflection of these rays of any surface. In the model, Bimba represents the pure consciousness and Pratibhima, the reflected consciousness from the Upadhis.
The Chidabhasa's another name is also Pratibhimba. So this would be, if you replace the Pratibhimba with Chidabhasa, it'll make sense to you.
The Upadhis in the model. Sunlight reflects from a bucket of water and from the ocean. The bucket stands for the Pindanda, individual body, and the ocean for the Brahmanda, cosmic body. The reflection appear different due to the vast difference in the Upadhis through which they are reflected. At the microcosmic or Pindanda level, the Upadhi is primarily the subtle body of an individual and thereafter the gross body. The reflected consciousness here is called the Jiva. At the macrocosmic or Brahmanda level, the Upadhi is primarily the Sukshma, subtle Prapancha, and thereafter the entire gross manifested universe. The reflected consciousness here is called Ishvara. From the point of view of the Upadhis, they are diametrically opposite each other. Other terms for the reflected consciousness are Chidabhasha, reflection of Chit or Chida Chaya, the shadow of Chit.
Chit Chaya.
Yeah, Chit Chaya, or Chit Pratibhimba. Chit Pratibhimba. All three terms are used in various Vedantic texts. These terms may be applied to both Jiva and Ishvara.
I think I'll stop here for 1 second. I think the concept of Ishvara is a unique concept in Hinduism, and a lot of people don't really understand it when you're looking at it from outside. The Ishvara is nothing but sum total of all the consciousness that exists in that creation. So the individual consciousness is what we call Jiva. When you total all the Jivas put together, that power is called the Ishvara. That's why in our culture, we have so many idols, depending on the kind of quality that is predominant in you, whether it is a mother or a sister or a brother or a father. You have so many different idols because all these idols actually should take your mind to this formless, faceless entity called the Ishvara. Let me give you an example of Ishvara, another example that will be related to all of us. For us to do any task in this world, Ishvara has to cooperate. There are so many people who are involved in our day-to-day life, but we never recognize them. Like, for example, let's say that you're driving from here to JFK, right? And you have a flight to catch. And you do all your math and you say, okay, it's going to take me an hour and a half to go, but Verrazano Bridge or Belt Parkway is always in trouble, so I'll give an extra hour. So you start 3 hours before the flight starts. But for you to reach the airport in 3 hours, a lot of things have to go right. If on that particular day, one guy messes up or he woke up on the wrong side and he's in agitation, he even hit somebody in the car, in the bridge or in the highway, and the traffic is stopped, your 3-hour plan is out the window. It'll probably take you 5 hours to get there. I've actually missed a couple of flights, so I can tell you from an example that this has happened. So you pray to Ishvara to basically say that everybody around you does whatever they're supposed to do and nobody kind of goes out of the way, because that'll mess up. We don't really think of this at all. We will take a car, jump in and go, and we'll say, oh, I did this, I drove very effectively. But in your driving effectively, there were a lot of other things that had to go right. If one of them didn't go right, you could be in trouble. Let me give you another example. Let's say that you have a major presentation in your office, and I work in New York, but other people might not. You have a presentation that starts at 8:30. So you plan accordingly and say, okay, I'm going to take the 6:15 train, and it's going to get me into Penn Station at 7:20 or something. And then I can walk to my work and I'll be ready for the presentation at 8 o'clock. I'll have a cup of coffee and maybe a bagel or something and be ready. You don't realize how many people have to do their jobs for you to reach the office on time. If on that particular day, this has happened to me multiple times, the signal between New Brunswick and Princeton Station, that's the worst signal. It just stops functioning. The train will not proceed. They'll stop the train in Princeton Junction. That's it, you come back home. It happened. There's a snow or something happened. Or this, the other thing. People like to die, but they like to die in front of New Jersey Transit. So somebody will jump on the track and the train will come and hit. That's it. You're gone. That day, there is no train. Okay. Or this is, again, I'm giving you all the experience. I've done this for 20 years. Between Newark Penn Station and Secaucus, there is actually a drawbridge. I don't know how many people have noticed. If at that particular point of time, a ship is going, the drawbridge is open, you don't go to Penn Station on time. The train is kind of suspended till the ship passes and the drawbridge is closed. And then you can go to Penn Station. All these things have to go right. We think we have done the presentation phenomenally well. We are just a small little speck in the bigger scheme of things that have to go right for us to deliver the presentation on time and effectively. That is what Ishvara is. Ishvara is the entity that works through all of us, the reflected consciousness in each of the different human beings or entities, that makes this task possible for us to get done. And that's why our religion provides people with any kind of idol that you want. It doesn't really matter, because we are not really actually praying for the idol, even though this is the other problem. When we go to the temple, the idol that you see should take your mind up towards Ishvara, because you don't even know what is it that you're going to the temple for. We have to go and pray to the collective entity that drives our world and our actions, and punya or papa. When they do abhishekam on that entity, the reason that abhishekam is important, at that time, our mind should be submerged as the abhishekam is falling on. Let's say it's a milk abhishekam or pal abhishekam. When the abhishekam is falling on the idol, your mind should actually get submerged in that Ishvara. That is the significance of that idol. What we do, we go to the temple, we look at the idol, we look at the jewel in the temple, what sari that thing has been worn, all that kind of stuff. We have virtually no idea why we are going to the temple to begin with. We have to, this is the reason our culture is so superior, because that needs to be understood. What is it that we are trying to go? The reason we go to the temple is to cultivate our mind and raise our mind from this transactional life that we live in on a regular basis, to constantly focus our mind and say, we are a divine being that is just working through the body. We are not the body. And that's why if you look at our culture, I have this discussion with my mother all the time. Even today morning, I spoke to her. In our culture, every other day, there is something happening where God is invited. Today was Thai Amavasai. Thai is it's actually a month in the lunar calendar. And that particular day, Shiva did something, and there is actually a slokam written for that particular thing. Tradition has it that on that day you wake up and you say the shloka. I didn't even know that that day was that important. But in our culture, every other day there is something happening, and the objective is to really get your mind to start focusing on it. Because what we do in our lifestyle today is that we immerse ourselves in the transactional world, and we think we are very efficient. Out of the 24 hours, except for the 6 hours of sleep, the 18 hours is just running after one after the other. We'll do 10 different things. We'll go work, we will take care of the children. We think we are superwomen or supermen. But the real purpose is for us to get out of this transactional world and spend some time with an activity that makes us divine. And that is either you attend a satsang, or every day you go read 1 or 2 shlokas in Gita, or just listen to a mantra when you're driving in the car. I know we are all very busy, but our Swamiji says that 15-20 minutes that you can spend where your mind is lifted from the body, mind, intellect concept to more of the Atma. Because when you read these scriptures, or you read the mantras, or you read the Upanishad, that 15 minutes you lose your identification with the body. And that's how it's like a tiger tasting blood, right? Your mind will never really accept anything without really tasting it. So if you go through that experience every day for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, that will slowly get extended for half an hour, for an hour. Little by little, you will start dissociating yourself from the mind. And you will start realizing that I'm something more than the mind. I'm something different than the mind. That's how you break this body-mind stranglehold that it has on you right now. So let's finish this. I think we have only 3 more minutes. So yeah, let's just finish the removing the upadhis, the 2 paragraphs, and then we'll stop there.
Removing the upadhis. The pure sunlight is bimba or chit or pure consciousness. The reflected sunlight is pratibhima or chidabhasa. It is, if the differences due to the upadhis are ignored, it means the reflection are ignored. What is left is just the pure consciousness in both cases. This is the main point of this model. It makes it very clear that the pure consciousness is unaffected by the size or shape of the upadhis. In the manner the Jiva, the sunlight from the bucket, is seen to be identical to Ishvara, the sunlight from the ocean. From the point of view of consciousness.
See, just stop here, for example. We have so many people with different kind of bodies. The Atmas cannot be different. One guy is fat, one guy is thin, one guy is tall, one guy is short. The Atma cannot be that way. That is the quality of the body. The Atma is an entity that cuts across all of these human beings, or even cuts across animals and everything else. right? And that's what this thing is saying. It is the quality of the body that's put on the Atma, and we think the Atma is in that living being. That's not the case. The body has that quality, the conditioning, and that conditioning is superimposed on the Atma. Move forward. So go ahead, Anilji.
A secondary deduction from the model is this. The reflection from a bucket of dirty water would be different in quality to that from a bucket of clean water. The Jiva has a large amount of impurity in it. The Sattva and the Jiva is sullied by impurity, which is why it is deluded by avidya. It does not know its true nature. It is the slave of Maya, that is Maya dosha.
Maya Dasa.
Maya das. As far as Ishvara is concerned, the comparison here is the ocean, which is always sattvic and pure. This ties up with the fact that Ishvara is predominantly sattvic and hence not deluded by Maya, but is the master of Maya, that is Maya Pati.
Okay, let's stop there and see if anybody has any questions or comments. We'll take from next class, we'll take part B of this thing.
So you said submerge in Ishvara or the idol. Can you a little bit elaborate? Is it something that become oneness with God? I mean,
yeah, basically raise your mind, and at least for that 10 minutes that you're in the temple, you need to think that you're not the body, but you are the Atma, which is the divinity in all of us, right? Breaking that body-mind stranglehold that you have. And you need to identify that idol that you say as the Ishvara is the power behind the entire creation that is there. Because at the end of the day, pouring the water on that metal doesn't do anything. It is just water going through the metal, and then you clean the idol after that. The effect of that Abhishekam is essentially to raise your mind to the awareness of the Ishvara, which is a combination of Maya and Brahman. To essentially break the body-mind intellect concept and wake up the divinity that you have within yourself.
thank you, sir.
Hariji, this Chidabhasa, the relative truth or consciousness, so this could actually go into a number of layers, right? If you were to logically think, let's say, for example, to experience one level of Chidabhasa, let's say the Turiya fourth state is there. There could be another state, actually knowing this state and so on and so forth.
It's actually, honestly, this Turiya is something that is, in Advaita, we don't really say Turiya is there. It's the Atma that is there in all the three states. And that is what we say is a Turiya, because you go through the three avasthas, and then the third avastha, the gap is there, you realize the Atma. In the first three states, you don't realize the Atma because it is contaminated by the waking state, the Jiva, the different entities that we have in each of the states. But there is nothing like a Turiya per se. Turiya is the Atma. When Atma is cleaned off all the avasthas, what is left is what we call the Turiya, the pure entity, the conscious state that gives you the bliss per se. There are actually just those four states. There are the three avasthas, and then this. There are people who experience a lot of other things. They would have seen God and they would have seen everything else. I'm not denying that, but that is not what the scriptures say. The scriptures say that you have to move yourself from these three states and identify yourself with Turiya, which is identify yourself with Atma. That is the clean Atma, which is not bounded by any of these three avasthas.
Yeah. Thank you.
Just one question, small. This Upadhi, right? This is a Sanskrit word.
Correct.
Okay, maybe we Telugu people also use that, maybe in the Sanskrit version. But normally we say somebody is like, some job or something. We say that is our Upadhi.
That is
right?
work. Yeah, that is his profession.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We use
So
Upadhi. That is not what this means.
Okay.
This is more of somebody giving a false quality to someone else, to another entity that's very close by, even though that other entity does not really have that quality. It is borrowed from this particular entity that's right next to it. So for Upadhi and to happen, the Upadhi and Upahita have to be close by. They have to be right next to each other or touching each other or whatever. That's why the quality can get transferred.
Riji, sometimes the Upadhi is the title.
That is in Hindi. That is not what we mean here. In
It
Sanskrit,
sounded like that. You're just giving yourself like a title as in an identity, right? You may not be that, but
no, but that identity is like you give a pandit as a upadhi to somebody, but that might be a real for the qualification that person has. Then you give that person a title. But here, the entity that is getting the upadhi, giving that thing, does not give the quality is still with the upadhi. The upahita just gets it, borrows it from that particular thing. It is not complete. Like just because the body looks to be alive, the body does not get the life per se. The body, the liveliness is still with the Atma. The sentiency of the Atma is borrowed by the body. Similarly, the Atma is never conditioned. The Atma is prevalent all over the place. The conditioning is borrowed from the body, falsely. So even though the Atma is Anantam, it is there everywhere, people identify it to be within the confines of somebody's body. And that is what Upadhi is. It's a false property that you get. Whereas Upadhi in Hindi, sometimes you tell it to a Pandit or you give a Chaturvedi and all that, you give some Upadhis, that is like you give a title to some people. That is different because that is a title that is deserving of that person depending on her qualifications or her achievements. Here the difference is it is falsely given. Any other questions? All right, we've gone beyond 9 o'clock. I don't want to take more of your time, so we'll stop here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. All of you have a great week and thank you very much for cooperating with me and changing your days. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
We'll see you all next
Thank
time.
you.
Bye now.
Next time.
Thank you, Harji. Thank you, Balaji Guru. Hari Om.
Thank you. Yes, sure.
Okay, sir.